All right. This is the Tell Me About It podcast. I'm Stella Graham. This is where I get to talk to interesting people who know some stuff because I need it, because I am a little bit thick, people. My guest today is the fabulous Athena Kugblenu. All right, mate.
Two lies already. You're not thick, and I'm not fabulous. I'm sat here staring at you with no makeup. I like a plain Jane right now.
Not at all.
Um,
You look great. Your skin is as good as I'd like mine to be when I put makeup on. So
oh, bless you.
you got no
Yeah.
complaints in that department. Now, for anyone who's not familiar with Athena, how could you have missed her? You might have caught her recently on Mock the Week because she is a badass stand-up. Among other things, you might have heard her. She is a regular co-host on The Guilty Feminist. You do a bit of writing. You write
I
for
did a little bit
horrible,
of yeah. Oh,
horrible
sorry, I
histories.
interrupted you. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. The audience is probably thinking, yeah, Stell, let her talk. But I'll quickly whiz through. You write for like Horrible Histories, the Russell Howard Hour, a few shows on Radio 4. Dead Ringers, the News Quiz. You're the lead writer for a sketch show called Sketchtopia. And somewhere among that lot, you've managed to have a couple of gorgeous kids and do your own podcast called Keeping Athena Company.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have called it Keeping Athena Busy. You do a lot.
keeping the bills paid. Call it that. Let's call it paying the mortgage. Let's just call it. There's a big umbrella that covers all of that work, which is just life admin. Sadly, I would do if I could do nothing with my days. I would do nothing. I swear to God, it's the God's honest truth. I would sit around and do nothing all day if I had that kind. If I was able to do that, but I'm not.
And wouldn't we all love to do that? But now I need some knowledge, and you know a lot about scripted comedy.
Yeah, I know a bit. I should kind of. This comes as a disclaimer, okay? I got no sitcoms out there. Like, just so you know, like I pretty much now just write comedy for a living. This is just my job, which I'm very proud of. But just a disclaimer, I'm not like, there's no sitcom, there's no movie, there's no commission like that. But I'm kind of what you would call like a working writer, I guess.
Yeah, I'm into it.
I shot my material to lots of people, and I have some stuff that people are interested in that might go somewhere one day. But yeah, I've been doing that. I've been concentrating on scripted comedy for the last couple of years, so I know a bit.
And how has that been, sort of going from? I mean, I'm guessing it was mostly stand-up you did first. I know you have improv in there among your fabulous skills toolbox.
Yeah, I mean, you're an actor, and you'll probably relate to this. So improv and comedy writing are massively related crafts. They're cousins. The art of writing a sketch is very similar to what your brain will be doing when you're playing at an improv scene. You'll be escalating things, you'll be repeating things, you'll be taking on character personalities, you'll be starting small, ending big, knowing when to stop, knowing when to jump into a scene, all that kind of stuff. Yes and is a big part of sketch writing too. Just like, what happens next, which is actually yes and is a big part of just script writing in general, whatever genre you're in. Like it's always like, what happens next? That's fine, but what happens next? What happens next? Okay, and then what? And then what? Or but this. Like you have lots of conjunctions. So every time you finish a scene, you're like, the scene finishes but, or the scene finishes and, or whatever. So improv is just like that. So that's kind of what happened. Was really, I started doing stand up, I started doing improv, and then I started writing, and it's like a train that arrives at different stations. It's all connected in that way. And then, as you all know, like it's very hard to make a living in comedy just doing one discipline these days. So you're kind of compelled to ride that train because you see opportunities. So a lot of it was intention, but a lot of it was kind of just accident.
Necessity.
yes, very much so.
Fair enough. So you went from doing stand-up to then improv to then writing. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I would guess there'd be a bit of a Venn diagram overlap. So when I started doing stand-up, I was just pure stand-up. And I guess I started writing sketches. Then I got into improv and I was still doing stand-up and sketches. And then I started writing sketches based on people who had approached me after doing some Edinburgh shows who just said, oh, would you like to write on these shows? And I was like, well, I'll try. But what happens when you try is that you sometimes some shit sticks to the wall. That's the wrong analogy, but imagine you want the shit, imagine you want the shit to stick to the wall. Imagine it's a wall imagine this shit only sticks if it's funny. So eventually I started to write some stuff that made it through. So I remember I did this Sketchtopia, the show that I did. So I met the producer. He said, I'm doing a show. I'm looking for new writers, just pitch your sketches and write them. And those are my first broadcast sketches. And I tell you something,
nice.
When actors say out loud words that you've written, I think it was more satisfying than stand up. It was really,
Really?
yeah. It was
All
really
right.
probably because I never imagined I'd do anything like that. And we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about 3 minutes of sketches here. We're not talking about like groundbreaking stuff. It wasn't like Shakespeare. But I remember listening to radio and thinking, I wrote those words.
Okay.
And at that time, it was a few years ago they made that series. So obviously there was like an audience, and like the audience was laughing at the jokes that I'd written. And I think what had happened was I didn't know how to write scripted comedy. I found it really hard to transition from writing a joke to writing conversation that was funny.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I got really I got satisfied about nailing this thing that I couldn't do for ages.
Okay.
You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? So
Yeah.
I realized, how do you make writing a joke is kind of not easy, but I know how to do that. I know how to think, oh, this is material for me to say. But
Mm-hmm.
having two people interact and have that interaction be funny, how do you do that? Oh, okay, you do it with character, you do that with setup, funny idea, and all the stuff I mentioned earlier about the improv stuff that I learned. So once I'd kind of got the ingredients, and then once I'd got the craft, like the idea of craft in my brain, I was like, oh, I can execute now.
Mm-hmm.
Way more satisfying than stand up at the time. Yeah, for me, for sure.
So when someone comes and approaches you after your show and says, "Hey, do you want to write on this show?" Were you thinking, "Never done that before, but I'll turn up with a box of sharpened pencils and fake it till I make it"?
Say
Or
yes. Anyone who wants to do anything creative, say yes. Fake it till you make it. I swear to God, fake it till you make it. And also, we live in a world of very democratized information. You can learn this stuff. Literally, you can just Google how do you write comedy, and you'll get a plethora of resources. I actually did a course in sketch writing. So I remember this course. I'm actually still friends with the people who were on this course. We were on a WhatsApp group together. So it was, it was a great course. I mean, it was okay course, lots of banter, but I learned. The course was fine, but I got the core ingredients of how to write a sketch from this sort of random course that I went on in Crouch End. So the information is there, and I paid for that. You can go all the information that I paid for in that course is out there for free. There's or affordably they could buy a book for £6, and it has all the information in there. So say yes to everything, fake it till you make it, and then just like put the work in to kind of fill in the gaps in your knowledge, and that's what I did. And that's how I kind of started and then continued.
so is it mostly short sketches that you write?
So all sorts now. So sketch comedy, topical comedy. So topical news shows will require one-liners, sketches, monologue gag, stuff like that. Some shows just want ideas. They just want you to react to stories, and then the proper writers will then write jokes or riff on them or whatever. I have pilots, so I've got like longer form comedy pilots circulating. Off the back of that, I do script editing as well and additional writing. So I've done some work with people where they've sent me their scripts and I've punched them up, or I've edited them. I've done development work now, so people will be like, "We've got this idea. Do you want to write treatment? And if you can write a script, you can write treatment." So I've done that a couple of times. So there's lots of kind of different things that I do and have done. But yeah, work breeds work, as you will know. So once you do something and you do it well, especially in this BLM Black Lives Matter climate, I have noticed I've become a little bit more popular. That's real. But I would maintain that everything I've done, I don't think I've ever been given a job I didn't deserve, even when it was given to me and I was like, oh shit, how do I do this?
You've still got to do the work, right? You've still got to
still got to do the work. And to be honest, some of the places that I've had access to in the past, I guess 6, 7, 8 months, I feel like I should have been there ages ago, but for whatever reason it didn't happen. No, it's true, because I'm as people who do create stuff for a living, we get better all the time. You never stop learning or whatever. Yeah. But I think I've been funny for a little while now.
Guys,
I have been.
I've been funny I've been kind of a big deal for a while.
Yeah, I've been funny. No, I've been funny for a couple of years. I would say I've kind of hit okay, this is how you do comedy for a living for a little while now. So it's nice. In many ways, it's nice to come into the room overcooked, because then you can just hit the ground running. No, but then that's effectively better than doing something prematurely. So, and to be honest, like, it was really good timing for me with lockdown. So for everything to escalate at the time when the live circuit went, I actually have to be grateful for that. So I take it all back. This was the right time to get me into these spaces. That
was going to be my next question, actually. So were you like going into writers' rooms, or were you writing remotely and sending stuff in?
Both. I mean, there was this one job where I used to have to go to Cardiff And now we don't have to go to Cardiff anymore. It's great. So it's
I'm guessing that's not a slur on Cardiff, that's the travel, right?
no, it's travel because I've got, at the time I had one daughter at the time, so it's like, by the time you paid for childcare, you've kind of eaten up half your wages. So but yeah, it was writers' rooms, but writers' rooms and doing stuff at home in my yard. And obviously now it's basically all online now, which is, again, if for parents, this is great because you don't have to pay for childcare and you can kind of balance your schedule a bit better.
So are you finding like you have to come up with the sketches, or you're mostly editing? Like how's a typical day?
Okay,
if there's
so
such a thing?
mostly I'm pitching sketches for shows. So like a show like, I mean, I don't. I should be really humble here. Like, I don't get a lot on air for like some of a show like Dead Ringers. Like, I'll pitch a lot of stuff and not a lot goes out. So I'm probably responsible for about 30 seconds of Dead Ringers every week that I've worked on. So just like I said,
right.
disclaimer. Like, and that's that's fair enough. They have like really amazing sketch writers on there. But that's what you do. Like, if you want to know how that works, any show like that, there's a writer's room. You go through the news that happened that week, and then you'll say, okay, well, wouldn't it be funny if Trump was covered in feathers and he was a bird for a day? That just came to my head, or whatever. That might be I'll tell you about one sketch that we had that I got through. Do you remember when the pubs opened again after the first lockdown?
Yes.
And everyone was like, "Oh, it's going to be chaos! It's going to be chaos!" So we did a sketch where Jeremy on Channel 5, not Jeremy Kyle, Jeremy the other one. He does
Tell Me About It podcast.
He does like BBC Radio. He does BBC Radio 2's
oh yeah, anyway. Jeremy
Vine.
Okay. There we go. Yeah, that guy.
We did a sketch where Jeremy Vine was cutting to we did a sketch where Jeremy Vine was cutting to people across the country and expecting chaos, and everyone was just like having a nice beer. Yeah. So that was the premise of the sketch. Like, we were expecting it to be mad, and it wasn't mad, and Jeremy Vine was just trying to make it as mad as possible so that the story worked. So you pitch something like that, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's good," because it matches a news story, and it's quite sweet and whatever. And then if they like it, you write it, you send it in, and if they like it, what you sent in, they record it, and it goes out on a Friday.
So you would pitch the concept, or you would write the sketch and send it?
I'd pitch the concept, yeah. So most shows will ask you for like the top line. Like, what's the sketch about? And then if they like it, then you can write it, which is the best way, because you don't want to write a sketch that people are like, this is garbage. Actually, my favorite one I did for Dead Ringers was, do you remember when Trump was doing his rallies? No musicians wanted him to use their music.
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
So I did a sketch about Trump having to use music that didn't need licensing, like nursery rhymes and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So it's it's a silly concept, but you get how it works. So we want to tell the story of musicians not liking Trump using music. Okay, wouldn't it be funny if he was just left with like Intimacy Spider, because that's out of copyright for obvious reasons. So, or like Beethoven, shit you don't have to pay for anymore. So, and again, that would be an example of something that you say it and it sounds funny. So then you just write in the sketch once they give you permission to do so.
Because there are shows, aren't there, like Newsjack and stuff, where you would just send in a couple of sketches because it's
yeah. So Newsjack is a great way so I do writing for Newsjack, and that's a great way for people to proactively send stuff to the BBC, and no one makes more comedy than the BBC. That's just the reality. If you want to write comedy regularly for a living, you probably will want to have some work coming from the BBC, because no one makes more comedy because of their radio output and their TV output and now their podcast output. And Newsjack is a great way to get in. And also they read everything. So even if your stuff doesn't get through to Newsjack has a very particular flavour. So it doesn't mean what you've done isn't funny. It just means it hasn't been right for the show. So I can't encourage people enough to write to that show when it's up and running. It's really handy.
And on an unrelated thing, have you ever had to write for something and you've listened to it and you've gone, this is not my humour at all?
Well, I actually say this, I've got a record of saying this, like, it's very difficult writing for like Radio 4, for example, because sometimes I have to change my voice a lot. That's just how it is. But that's what I think, when you're creative for hire, it's not just in comedy, in anything like that, you'd have to adapt. So I'll give you an example. So you mentioned that I do stuff for like the Russell Howard Hour. You know, I don't have to adapt so much to that. Myself and Russell Howard are very politically aligned.
Right.
So it's like, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I can use my voice here. And
Yeah.
you know, okay, I'm a dread from North London. He's a white guy from Bristol, but you'd be surprised. Like, there's not that much adjustment that needs to be done. Whereas, you know, if you do something like the Now Show, like I'm a little, you know, there's a little bit of difference between myself and Steve Punt. That's not it's not a problem. Like, we're not all the same, right? That we're just different people. So there were certain things I say, I can't even say fam in it. Like, you can't say that, for example. So you have to make that adjustment. So it's not a case of listening thinking, oh, listen for me. It's a question of, oh, I have to change my voice so it sounds natural coming out of the person that I'm writing for, which is part of the craft and a really important thing to learn, I think, if you want to make money.
I was just about to say, and how hard have you found that? So you listen to something and you're like, this is not me.
I've probably found that quite hard, actually. There's probably quite a lot of work that I missed out on because I've not been able to really sell what I want to say in the package thereafter, if that makes sense, for various projects and things that I've been working on. So it is hard. And I should say that even though I'm here, like, trying to tell you how to be a comedy writer, this is very new to me. This is the first year that I've really done this full time. So last year was the first year that I was like, so I'm like still very much a rookie. So it's not easy. And you just have to not be afraid of failure, because sometimes what you'll think to yourself, this sounds crap, but you have to remember that it sounds crap in your brain, but those same words coming out of someone completely different to you might sound brilliant, especially when you're working with like amazing professionals. Like, they will polish a turd.
There we go.
They will polish your shit. So I had to get a bit braver, I think, with kind of the work I was submitting to people who you know, don't necessarily share my worldview or background or things like that.
So when you're script editing, you must be looking at other people who are probably a bit further back from where you were when you started, or do you get out your red pen and be like,
no, not at all. So what script editing is really hard, and it basically, my thing is I just want to make it something funnier. That's it. That's how I approach it. Like, okay, how do I make this funnier? Where's the joke that somebody else hasn't seen? Or like, I'll just ask questions if there's something that doesn't seem clear to me or that I don't understand.
Okay.
And I very rarely get something and like, this is garbage, or no, absolutely. Like,
I didn't think it'd be your type of thing.
No. It's never. That's never been the case at all. It's more just, for me, it's how can I tend, you know, that's the brief I'm often given, just like, make it funnier.
Right.
You know, make
so
it
just
funny,
tag jokes on and stuff where you see them.
Yeah, toppers, or sometimes someone will write something and it will lack something. I'll give you an example. Somebody wrote a script where someone took a selfie, and they took one selfie and they were like, this is fine. I'm like, no. That people take 20 selfies, right?
Right.
And guess what? That's a really good opportunity for like a montage. You know what I'm saying? And then that's a really good opportunity for like a running gag where they're just taking loads of selfies. So sometimes it's really subtle, easy things to spot that someone might not have noticed, because it's so banal. You're so busy thinking about plot and character and narrative. You're not thinking about, you know, the real world. So there's a lot of it is just being a fresh pair of eyes to spot little things like that.
Yeah, nice. Being the person who looks at the jigsaw puzzle and goes, there's a piece.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's so important to write scripts collaboratively. It's like such an important thing to share. If you've got a script, share it with someone you trust to get their opinion on it. It's one of the most valuable things you can do. Something I've recently started doing, and it's just invaluable.
Okay. We're getting to that point, so I need to ask, everybody loves a shout out. Would you like to shine a spotlight on a mate?
Yeah. Let me shout out someone who I do improv with, and he's great. He's a filmmaker. He's a writer. His name's Tai Campbell. Probably one of the most talented improvisers that I know. Listen, I know a lot of improvisers. You're all wicked. Okay, you're all very good. But he's a great filmmaker, and he was doing lots of stuff just for lockdown. He had stuff on BBC Three and all this kind of stuff. Excuse me. It's not COVID. I've been tested twice.
That's all right. I don't think I can catch it down Zoom.
In case anyone's worried, what's wrong with Athena? Is she okay? She looks pale and she's coughing. Right, yeah. So let's shout out Tai, especially because in the something I feel really strongly about is like I think like the funny industry, the comedy industry tends to look for talent in the stand-up world. Tai does do stand-up as it happens, and which I think is great as I'm a stand-up. But there's loads of people out there who don't do stand-up, but they still make creative, wonderful, hilarious stuff. Someone like Munya, for example, Munya wasn't a stand-up, but he wasn't. If he didn't go viral, Munya Chihuahua, if he
Yeah.
didn't go viral, would we know him? Right. So,
I've not
but
seen him on the stand-up circuit.
exactly. And yeah,
Yeah.
he's been making sketches for a long time. So it's not just stand-ups who are funny. There's lots of other people out there who are funny and talented. So just, I'd love to big up the improv community in general in London, but definitely let's say Tai.
Tai
He's cool.
Campbell. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
He's a mate as well. And I'm hoping to get him on here at some point too.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you can all get to enjoy him. But yeah, Ty's wicked. So
Have him do impressions.
I thought about that actually. I might just ask him to do that. So I'm gonna message him later. Mate, it's always a pleasure hanging out with you. I will post links to all of your good stuff just here on YouTube. Any last things you want to plug before you go?
Just my podcast, Keeping Athena Company, and I feel really silly that I was like, yeah, man, I deserve to be in these rooms earlier. Like, I don't. I'm really shit. I'm literally an imposter in these places, and I'm trying so hard. I'm trying really hard. But yeah, my podcast is called Keeping Athena Company. You can check that out too. That'd be nice.
Keeping Athena Company. All right. As I said, all the links will be posted below to your good stuff, and of course, Tai Campbell, wicked, shine a spotlight on her, mate. Thanks for hanging out. It's been great to see you.
My pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thanks for asking.